Again, good afternoon to all. Does everyone have a program? If not, the individuals who are online, the program and the agenda is in the chat box. You'll be able to go to the chat box and get the agenda. We're going to give a 3-minute grace period for additional individuals to sign on, to make sure everyone gets signed on before we start. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. State Conservationist Shelton Hightower and State Conservationist Mike Sullivan of Arkansas. Shelton Hightower is the State Conservationist in Tennessee, and Mr. Kurt Reedus is the State Conservationist in Mississippi. Those are the 3 gentlemen who made this possible, along with Chief of the National Office, Chief Crosby in Washington, as far as allowing us and the resources, or provide us with the resources to come out and do this outreach in the Memphis metropolitan area. Is Lashika Bryant, not Lashika Miller, are you on?
I am. I'm here.
Okay. That 3-minute grace period, when she said she was here, that changed a number of things. I probably ran my mouth, and Mia's looking at me and laughing. Just like to give a couple of accolades and, as the young people call it, shout outs to Memphis Tilth, also for allowing us to sit up here and do this remote broadcast or Zoom cast or whatever you like to call it. But in opening, we're going to do the beginning with Ms. Lashika Miller, our Chief Financial Officer and Vice President of our organization, Arkansas Land Community Development Corporation. We're going to begin with the prayer. Ms. Miller.
Dear Heavenly Father, God, we thank you for this day. God, we thank you for this meeting. We thank you for every one of us that's gathered on here. God, we ask, God, that you bless this meeting, God. Give information, God, to those who need it, God, and let it be, God, meaningful and helpful to those. God, and we tell you thank you, God. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. We're going to stick with the agenda. For those individuals who are online, the agenda is in the chat box. You can go to the chat box. We have the agenda, a couple more items in there on how to get a farm number and a metro period, and some phone numbers for individuals who you may need. Again, my name is Albert Jones. I'm with Arkansas Land Community Development Corporation. We're going to have Miss Mia Madison, the Executive Director of Farm Tilth, Memphis Tilth, I apologize, it's farm. Would you come up and give us some information about your organization, what you guys do? Yeah, well, you need the camera's right here. But... That's not for, that's the right here? Yeah.
I'm vaccinated. Hello, everyone. My name is Mia Madison. I am the Executive Director here at Memphis Tilth, and I'd like to welcome everyone who is joined online and also in person. Memphis Tilth is an agricultural nonprofit. We lead initiatives focused on strengthening the local food system. And so our vision really is to cultivate collective action for an economically sustainable, socially equitable, environmentally sound local food system. We do that across a few different programs. We operate Tilth Gardens, which include the St. Jude Garden at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. We have our St. Paul Garden in the, South Memphis community, the 38126 neighborhood. And we also have our St. James Garden, which is in North Memphis at Chelsea and Springdale in the 38108 community, Hollywood and Hyde Park. We also operate Chelsea Avenue Farmers Market on the site of the St. James Garden. And we have our Bring It Food Hub, which is right here, our commercial kitchen, which is USDA GAP certified. 2 of our farms are USDA GAP certified, and we aggregate and distribute food. We aggregate that food from farms within 150 miles of Memphis. We distribute that food back out into a few different areas, 15 different food access points, including home delivery. We also provide that at our farmers market, the Chelsea Avenue Farmers Market. And we also have a special project where we bring our farmers' food to neighborhoods, and we call that Bring It Fresh, which is an affordable local food option. And so information, just hit end on that right there, right there, yep. Just hit end, yep, perfect. And so if you're interested in finding out more about Memphis Tilth, our website is www.memphistilth.org. We have a few other projects that we work on. Coming up in January, we have our cohort-based learning, which is our Ag Academy 2.0. That's for established farmers. Specifically, we are working with BIPOC farmers in order to provide them with assistance in scaling up to meet markets, including those new markets that they may not be in. And so if you're interested in digging in with us and receiving free direct technical assistance, please go to our website under Urban Agriculture Academy and sign up for our cohort-based learning. Classes will begin January 24th. We will run 2 cohorts that go from January 24th until March 14th. And so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My name is Mia Madison. My email address is Mia, M-I-A, @memphistilth.org. Or you can reach out to Corey, our operations manager, who is, Corey Walker. Corey is C-O-R-I-E @memphistilth.org. I can stand here and tell you about a number of projects that we have going on, like our soil research across urban areas, where we're doing Sawyer Undies project, which will be the second urban activation of the Sawyer program, which is by the USDA and largely has happened on farms, but in an inner city community. Nashville was the first, and we will be the second, and hopefully the largest. And so other vacant lot activation that we have going on across communities, where we work with community members to provide them with equity in how to launch their agricultural projects and products. We look with farmers into their fields to see how we can monetize those products so that we can purchase them from them to support that farmer livelihood. And I'd like to thank Albert Jones and the Arkansas Land Community Development Corporation for hosting this meeting with us today. And we'd like to again welcome you, ALCDC, and all of you and online. Thank you again so much.
Thank you, Mia. Next, we have my boss, co-founder of Arkansas Land Community Development Corporation 41 years ago, Dr. Calvin King Sr. Can you hear me, Doc?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah. It's yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me express my appreciation to Memphis Tilth also for being a partner with us and bringing this meeting to the local community. Arkansas Land and Community Development Corporation, those who do not know all of the history, we were established by our parent organization, Arkansas Land and Farm Development Corporation, which was founded back in 1980. Address the issue of Black land retention and land loss in the state of Arkansas and the decline of family farmers. Our work has focused on also alternative crops and promotion of alternative crops as a means of economic sustainability for small family farmers. So this particular relationship with Memphis Tilth, I'm hoping is one that will definitely expand and broaden with our producers, our farmers, as a part of a distribution network for vegetable production in the future as we move forward. The other thing I want to mention, we're located here where I am now. I'm located on our home base site here in Fargo, Arkansas. This particular site was founded back in 1919 by Dr. Floyd Brown, and it was founded as the Fargo Agricultural Training School. That was a reclaiming of the site by Arkansas Land and Farm Development Corporation in roughly 1984. We reacquired the property from the state. Dr. Brown founded the site as a K through 12 education institution for African Americans back in 1919. We closed in 1948. It was then established as an alternative school for Black girls, and that was more what the state controlled up to roughly 1970. And that closed and it went into state inventory. So this was one of our, I guess you would say, reclamation or reclaiming of a historical site that had originated as Black-owned land here in the state of Arkansas. Reclamation and dealing with Black land retention. I'm going to move ahead and one additional modification to the agenda. I know you all see where I'm on as the facilitator. For this particular meeting, there'll be co-facilitators, it'll be myself and Ms. Lashika Miller, who's the Vice President for the organization and Chief Operating Officer as well, operating the financial officer for Arkansas Land and Community Development Corporation. So I'm going to get started, and after my particular introduction on this particular workshop, I'll be doing work session 1. Ms. Miller will be doing work session on workshop 2 and workshop 3. As you can see, in workshop 3, I'm actually presenting, so she'll be covering the majority of the agenda as far as facilitation for the work session. Our first session is focusing on conservation resource opportunities for rural and urban agriculture. And we have as our first presenter, resource person, is Mr. Joel W. Howard, and Mr. Fred Walker. Mr. Fred Walker with Natural Resources Conservation Service, and he's a district conservationist for Shelby County. Mr. Walker, are you there?
He's here live. Yes, come on. Yes, he's here live, Dr. King. I would just like to also let all presenters know that each presenter has up to 15 minutes.
Okay, Mr. Walker, Natural Resource Conservation Services, Shelby County. Good to have you.
Yes, sir. It's good to be here. And as always, I want to take this off. I think I'm social distancing at this point. Well, first of all, I'd like to just say that I'm glad to be here. As usual, come out and reach out to inner city and urban communities. Traditionally, we have worked with, as far as NRCS, we've worked with rural producers.
Yeah, it's on, just need to talk.
Okay, we work with rural producers and big row crop producers, but we're trying to branch out from a push from our national pathway in order to reach out to urban producers. Waiting on my but yeah, my presentation today is going to reach out to about 3 different avenues. The first one will be, we're going to give you a little bit of history about NRCS, where we came from, introduce our chief of NRCS, Hugh Hamlin Bennett, and then we're going to move into some of the programs that we have to offer for NRCS, some grant opportunities that's going to be coming up this spring, and also the planning process, along with some of the practices that we can cost share on and provide assistance. Okay. Again, I'm Fred Walker, District Conservationist for Shelby County, Tennessee, here in Memphis. I've been in this position in Memphis for about, it'll be 13 years coming up in May. And I've been working for the agency about 29 years. Like I said, Hugh Hammond Bennett, he is our first chief of NRCS. Back in 1935, he saw a vision, saw a need to conserve our soil. That was a good effort. We branched into the Natural Resources Conservation Service in 1994, to where we saw a need to conserve more than just soil. Where we branched into soil, water, air, plants, animals, humans, and energy. So we've evolved a complete circle just from soil. Our farm bill is made possible by the farm bill, and our work is made possible by the farm bill and delivered through a host of programs, like our Conservation Technical Assistance Program. Typically, there's not any cost share associated with that program. It's just where we provide our professional services to come out and help in any way we can to help people help their land. The Environmental Quality Incentives Program, that's our cost share program that we can cost share on conservation practices, and our Conservation Stewardship Program, where we actually help people maintain a level of conservation that they are currently at. And then the goal of the program is to achieve more conservation by the end of their contract. And there's some other programs as well. Also, I mentioned grants. We're gonna, hopefully this spring, Mr. Hightower, our state conservationist, is gonna introduce competitive grants again. In 2021, we implemented that program, and it's 3 different areas: conservation agreements, urban conservation, and collaborative outreach. Just to talk a little bit about those three avenues. The program is to leverage collaborative outreaches, to leverage resources with Tennessee's partners to provide farm bill outreach and increase the delivery of conservation assistance to historically underserved communities through a combination of program outreach and educational activities. Total funding in FY 2021 was $100,000. We had 6 contracts awarded, and those contracts range from 1 to 3 years of duration. And also, meetings like this, you can apply if you want to outreach and have educational opportunities. A meeting just as this one, these are the types of things that we're looking for to spread that word. Thank you. Skip to it. Going the wrong way.
Still going the wrong way. You go
Yeah,
back.
you go back, you go
back. You're going forward. You need going forward. You need to go there. You're going
Yep.
forward. You're going forward. You need to go back.
Let me see, just hit this right here.
It's gonna be a YouTube. Well, it'll be on our website. You'll be able to go back to it.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. You skip the first 2. Just hit that down arrow.
It's gonna be more so the Zoom recording.
Okay, sorry about that. Conservation agreements. The purpose is to improve and increase soil health, water quality, and environmental and economic performance of working agricultural land. It also plans to address air quality concerns and carbon sequestration needs, develop quality conservation plans for effective grazing land practices, and develop, plan, and implement effective forestry practices and standards. In FY 21, there was $400,000 awarded for that grant, 10 contracts, and the duration was 1 to 5 years. So when I say duration, that means when they applied for 1 year up to 5 years to get that project up and running. Okay, urban conservation. This project is an effort to challenge local conservation districts, nonprofit organizations, non-governmental organizations, institutions of higher learning, and other community partners to establish pollinator habitats, establish gardens for food production, and establish high tunnels to extend the growing season of fruits and vegetables. $150,000, 20 contracts awarded, they range from 1 to 3 years. That's the first one. Go to the next slide. Okay, how to apply, www.grants.org. That's how you can apply for these grants. And there should be a state announcement coming out in Tennessee when those grants are up on that website and available to apply for. So what does NRCS do? NRCS provides one-on-one personalized advice. That's where we can meet with you, discuss your farm, your objectives, and the things that you want to get out of your farm and to improve it. And like I said, help people, help the land. NRCS help people make investments in operations in local communities. And investments such as if you got an issue or a problem, we can put in taxpayers' dollars and help you improve that and make that initial investment. NRCS generates, manages, and shares the data, technology, and standards to help make informed decisions. The future of conservation delivery. We want to return to planning. Planning became a necessity back in 1985 in the Farm Bill during that year. And for people to maintain eligibility for USDA programs, they had to maintain a conservation plan and adhere to that. So we want to get back to that. We call that our roots. We want to get back working one-on-one with producers and get back to conservation planning. Review involvement and emphasis in partnerships. You know, we've had partnerships with extension services and soil and conservation districts, soil and water conservation districts, FSA, but we want to branch out and reach out to more and more partnership opportunities. And we want to focus on targeted conservation. Conservation technical assistance. It provides a broad array of assistance, including conservation planning, project financial assistance. Assist individuals with regulatory requirements like obtaining permits for projects going on your property, maybe from the Environmental Protection Agency or Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. We want to assist in developing and implementing conservation plans. Again, you're going to hear me say plan, and I'm going to give you the steps to plan here in just a second. It all begins with the conservation plan. Conservation plan is a written record of a landowner's management decisions and the conservation practices and systems they plan to use, develop, and maintain on their farm. Again, this is where we sit down with you and we kind of draw that up before we get into looking for cost share assistance. Conservation planning includes 9 steps to help landowners achieve the goals of protecting the environment and their natural resources. It's got 3 phases. If you look at the orange or the red color, that's collection and analysis. We want to identify problems. The first thing we want to do, we want to come out and we want to identify what kind of issues, what kind of problems we have, whether it's a gully erosion or if it's pasture management, stream bank erosion, infield erosion, sheet erosion. So we want to identify those problems first. Once those are identified, then we can determine objectives. What do you want to do with it? How do we want to fix it? What's needed? Inventory resources. We would need to take a look at if you've got resources to match the cost share assistance. You got labor, you can do some of the labor if you got funds. Again, this is a cost share program, and it's not designed to pay 100%. So we need to take a look at this. We need to analyze the data. Once we, gather everything up, we need to take a look at it, take a step back, and say where we're going to go from here. That moves us over into phase 2. It's time to make a decision. We want to formulate alternatives. We want to look at, hey, will a rock drop structure work, or will a pipe drop structure work in this same issue or this same problem? We want to formulate that. We want to evaluate alternatives. That once we come up with the alternatives, we want to evaluate them to see which is going to be the best, which is going to be the best economically, which is going to be the best to actually take care of that issue and that problem or that resource concern. And then make that decision. We've identified the problem, we formulated the alternatives, we evaluated the alternatives. And now, number 7 right here, make decisions. This is where we really need to be talking about cost share. We've got a plan, we're working on the plan, we got a kind of an idea of what's needed. But number 7 is where you need to come into the NRCS office and say, hey, I'm ready to apply for the CSP program, or I'm ready to apply for the EQUIP program, or I'm ready to apply for state cost share. Then we can kind of take that plan and identify what program it needs to be targeted towards. And then we move down to the green section. It's time to, once the cost share assistance is gathered, we want to implement the plan. It's time to put the rubber to the road at that point. And then once the plan is implemented, we want to evaluate that plan and make sure everything is still working right, everything is being maintained. Once it's implemented, it's time for the producer to maintain it for the duration or the lifespan of that practice or those practices. And that is the phase 3 application and evaluation. Okay. Now, lastly, I want to just get into some of the practices that we have available. Yeah.
What button?
I think the computer lagged or something, and you kept pushing it. Just go back to that one. This one? Yeah, and then hit your up button. Yeah, keep going up. Come back, right there, okay. And then reading school. Okay. Go back to the beginning. Okay, right there. All right, now we're going to talk about some of the practices that we installed. As you can see, this is a before after of a gully. This is what we call classic gully erosion. Typically, rule of thumb is if it's too big to drive a vehicle across it, it's probably gully erosion. So this is caused by a concentrated flow from the water coming down a concentrated flow area that actually is trying to find lower elevation that's in a high elevated field, which is trying to find that lower elevation, such as a ditch or a river or a stream. So we put in structures to take care of this. Go to the next. In this instance, we use the grade stabilization structure, cattle pedal rock drop. That's where we use wooden post, cattle pedal wire, and rib wrap along the geotextile fabric. Utilize the design that we did there in my office, and we came up with this practice. This is it being tested and tried. It's in a big water flood event, and it's maintaining its own, and it's still here as we speak today. Doing a good job too. This is another gully erosion that you can see people like to put in hay bales or some type of obstruction. Well, all that does is you can see what happened. Water just simply ran around it on both sides. The hay bales dropped down and just made the gully bigger. So what we do is we can put in a structure and we put a pipe drop in this one. Go to the next. This is that same gully. We use a levee, put in a pipe to handle the amount of water that's coming down through the concentrated flow area and drop that water down to a pipe to that lower elevation. Next. Stream bank stabilization. As you can see, this is a curve that that's in the stream. The water is going to move faster on the outside of the curve than on the inside, and it causes stream bank erosion. We got to utilize riprap with geotextile fabric. We slope the banks back. You can see that the excavator there is sloping the banks back, and to get it on where the rock will stay on, not such a vertical slope. Laying the geotextile fabric. Geotextile fabric is very important. It separates the earth, the soil from the rock, and it keeps that rock in place and not let the water undercut the rock and kind of assimilate that hay bed in the previous pictures. Placing the rock, and then the next one is going to be the finished product. That bank is not going to erode anymore. That's a done deal on that. And that was done with cost share assistance through the Environmental Quality Incentive. Stream crossing. These serve twofold. The first thing it serves is a place for livestock and vehicles to cross the creek. We slope that back on at least a 5 to 7 to 1 slope, and we fence it to keep the livestock out of the stream to improve our water quality. And the next purpose it serves is livestock water. We fence it about the creek. We give them a place there to drink there in the middle, in the center of the stream there. And so you got a hardened surface that allows protection from the soil, protection from the water, and gives the producer a safe place to cross the creek. Heavy use areas. This is just happened to be one that's under a water facility. It's going to be under a water facility, but you can utilize heavy use areas anywhere there's heavy traffic, vehicle traffic, hoof traffic, people traffic. Anywhere it may be a muddy situation, you can utilize that. You excavate out the soil, you put down the geotextile fabric, and then you replace it back with a crusher run stone or 57 stone. And it's got fine lime in it along with the gravel, and it sets back up sort of like concrete. That's one the water trough is on. That's a water facility. That's another practice that provides fresh drinking water for the livestock. And the next picture, I think, is going to show you one that's in a fence line. This is working along with managing your pasture. You can rotate your livestock from one pasture to the other and provide drinking water with one trough on both sides of the fence. And that allows you to be able to rotate your cattle to allow them to eat on one side, and they're going to graze more of their grass than they would if they could just go all over the place. Because I like to look at it as a kid with a plate. You fix them a Thanksgiving dinner, they're going to eat the cake, they're going to eat the sweet potatoes, and maybe the potato salad, and then the greens and so forth and so on. And if they get full before they get to the greens, guess what? They won't eat those greens. So we kind of look at this as, I hate to use the word forcing them, but there's good nutritional grazing out there they're leaving behind if you don't manage your pastures. Native warm season grass establishment. Typically, we'll plant Indian grass, big blue stem, little blue stem, partridge pea, Illinois butterflower. These are all types of grasses that grow natively here. But we put in introduced grasses like fescue, that orchard grass, timothy, or something like that's kind of taking over native warm season grass. Seed bank is usually there. If you just go in there and burn that field off, or disc it in and leave it there, it'll probably grow back in some type of native grass. If the introduced grass doesn't come back and take it over. Over mature native warm season grasses. If you notice, there's a deer here. They started the fire. I don't know if that's a stage deer, but I just can't hardly see a deer standing there while you light that fire. But that's what the picture said. But you always want to start a fire in the middle of the field. You want to start bush hogging in the middle of the field. And what that does, this next picture is going to show you why. If you notice, that fire is going inward to the out, in to out. And that allows any kind of small animals to be able to flush from the field without being succumb to the fire or the bush hog. You start on the outside, the fire will come from the outside in, and they run to the inside, and then they have nowhere to go. So next, and then pollinators. We're trying to save our bee population and give them something to eat and provide honey and to keep the pollination going, so things can germinate and keep the world moving. Seasonal hot tunnels. That's something that's really taken off here in Shelby County. The definition of it: a seasonal polyethylene covered structure that is used to cover crops to extend the growing season in an environmentally safe manner. Producers who want to add electric power heaters and ventilation systems may do so at their own expense. That was prohibited when the program first started, when the practice first came out, but they have since eased that, and we can now allow that. There's a few different kinds. This is a rounded top with the zippered ends in it. It's got the roll up sides on it. That's another one. It's got a roll up end on it rather than zipping on the end. And it also has the roll up sides. That's just the interior to kind of show you the baseboards. That middle board there, the top board that you see there, it's necessary in order to put your roll up mechanism on it so it can roll up or down. And then the bottom board is just it's there to keep stability of the structure. Again, we want to thank you, Partnership, for allowing us to come and talk with you, or me to come and talk with you. And also, I'd like to introduce a young lady that just started here at my office yesterday. She's a program support specialist, and she's going to take a lot of administrative burden off of me. Her name is Kinsley Hammond. She just started here.
Mr. Walker, I have a question for you. How many high tunnels do you have in the Memphis metropolitan area in Tennessee?
You can come just off the top of my head. I'm gonna guess it's somewhere around probably about 25. And that's most of those are going to be in the inner city of Memphis. We got a few up around Millington, and we got some that haven't been implemented yet. They're on the books to be installed.
Would you let the audience know the first thing that they have to do in order to start the process?
Well, the first thing you need to do is be eligible. The land has to be eligible, and the participant has to be eligible. And when I say eligible, there's some paperwork you have to fill out. You go to the FSA, Farm Service Agency, and they will help you fill out that paperwork. It's a 1026 form. That's basically the agreement between you and the federal government that you're going to play by our rules, and we're going to do our best to play by your rules. Once you get that, as far as HEL, the highly erodible land, and the wetland provisions, you also have to have a adjusted gross income form filled out. With the USDA, you cannot exceed $900,000 over a 3-year applicable period. And I'm gonna give you an example for that. Like if you're applying for FY22, you have to not have made more than $900,000 adjusted gross income in 2019 and 18. the 3 years that's applicable to 22. Also, you need a 902 form. That's the form that he called on the numbers and anyway, FSA can help you with that. That's a 902 form. You have to have that. And as far as the land, you have to have a farm and tract number. I think Mr. Albert there talked about a farm and tract number. You have to have that. And that's pretty much it. We can work with you from there. We need a direct deposit form on you. We have to have that. Our system won't let us enter a contract with you unless we have a direct deposit on file for you.
Just want to let everybody know that who's online, that is in the chat box, the 4 steps from the Farm Service Agency.
Yeah, it's I'm sorry, that form 902 is just slipping my mind right now, but it is a necessary form that we have to have in order to make payments. Payment limitation form, that's what it is. Yeah, I just kept talking. That's what they always say when you're in church, just keep talking, the right word comes to you. But it's a payment limitation that we have to have to just show that you haven't exceeded your payments through the USDA. I think over a farm bill period, you can only get up to $450,000. If you exceed that over the duration of the farm bill, you're not eligible to participate. Any more questions? Right. And again, I'm glad. Thank y'all for having me.
Thank you so much. Dr. King there.
Oh, yes, I'm still here. This Miller will be taking over now, Mr. Jones.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. So we should be at workshop 2, correct?
Yes.
Still in workshop 1.
No, I'm sorry. No, actually, Ms. Miller, I'm wrong. I'm still on workshop 1. You're not up yet. I'm still.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
You're on work session 2. We have Mr. Joel Howard, and he's with the he's the business program director from Tennessee State Office of Rural Development. Mr. Howard, are you there?
We can see you, Mr. Howard.
Pardon me?
What about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yes.
Okay. I had to mess with my microphone a little bit. So yeah, I'm here.
All right. It's on you,
All right.
Mr. Howard.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you all via Zoom here. My name is Joel Howard with USDA Rural Development. We're a sister agency to NRCS and FSA. And I'm going to share my screen. I've got a PowerPoint that Mr. Jones gave me a little information about the group that I'd be speaking with today. And that is some producers there in inner city Memphis and Shelby County. I think that's mainly our audience. So I will share a couple of programs that we have available for USDA Rural Development for ag producers that is called our Rural Energy for America program and our Value Added Producer Grant program. So these are 2 grant programs that we can work with actually in the city limits of Memphis, as long as you're an ag producer. That's a little different. Historically, over the years, we've only been able to work in rural areas in Tennessee. So Shelby County, most of Shelby County has been ineligible for our programs. In West Tennessee, that's where I've worked predominantly my whole career of, I guess, 17 and a half years right now. We can only work in rural areas, typically populations 50,000 or less. But, over the years, we progressed trying to get into to working in the inner cities or more urban areas. And these are a couple of programs that we can do that with. So if y'all would let me know when y'all can see my screen.
It's coming
Can
up.
y'all see the PowerPoint?
No, we can't see it yet. Okay, there you go. We have
Let's
it.
see. All right. So again, appreciate the opportunity. And I'll just go through. I've got about slides. Again, we work Arkansas. Well, we really work nationwide. There's a USDA rural development in every state country. Tennessee, one of the more active states for specialty programs under our rural business service, which is I'm the program director for the state of Tennessee for our rural business service mission area. So again, I mentioned two programs. We have the REAP program that's basically centered around energy efficiency or renewable energy. So if you're in the limits of Memphis, only the ag producer qualifies. There's two types of applicants for this program, the ag producer and the rural small business. Rural small business has to be outside the city limits of Shelby County in a rural area or non-metro community of 50,000 or less. But for an ag producer, you have to 51% of your gross income has to be from ag production. So we'll take a look at your either your financial statements or your tax returns to evaluate that. If you're a rural small business, that's defined by our Small Business Administration. But I think we're dealing with most ag producers here, so I'll speak for that. It can be, as long as you file a Schedule F with the Internal Revenue Service, I guess, then you would be qualified as an ag producer. This is a grant, as I mentioned. It's a 25% of total eligible project cost. The minimum grant request, you would need at least a $10,000 project. This can be solar panels on top of your building. It could be, if you had a barn, we do a lot of chicken houses and the insulation in those, or new energy efficient fans. Those are just a couple of types of projects we can look at. But the maximum grant request is $500,000 on a $2 million project. We don't see a whole lot of those. Most of the grants we see are 20,000 or less, pretty much, for this program. I'll open it up right there, or I can go on through to the end. What would you rather me do, Mr. Jones, if anybody has any questions?
Let's keep going.
Okay. All right. So the application deadline, there's two application deadlines for FY22, which were our October 1 to September 30th is our fiscal year. There's two application deadlines. One of those is passed. It was the end of October. The second one is March 31st, 2022. I will say there's grant packagers across the nation that can help you put together an application in the event that you wish to apply. They are pretty much, I would say, if you find a good, they are worth whatever they charge to put an application together, because as most of you know, we're the federal government. We're mostly here to help. I know that's a saying a lot of people say, but we can be cumbersome to deal with. The paperwork can be. So, if you have a list of factors, we've got those, the ones that we worked with in the past. We can provide that for you. So that's REAP in a nutshell. The next one is our Value Added Producer Grant Program, and it's basically it's national competition. That means we take applications across the state We basically make sure they're eligible, and then they compete with a lot of other projects across the nation. So there's two types of value-added producer grants. There's a planning grant, which you can do a facility study, business plan, anything that's help you on the planning side of things to make your operation better, more efficient, grow it out. That's what that is. And then the working capital grant, it's a max of $250,000, and that's exactly what that is. What that says is it's a working capital. You can, buy supplies, use it for some salaries, buy product. Examples of that across the state, we're seeing a lot of creamery.
Went out. Looks like he dropped off. Unmute him.
Joel, I think you're on mute.
I mean, it's got me muted for some reason. Okay, there was it said started recording or something on my end, but I'm back. So I don't know where, I'll basically start back over a little bit on this value-added producer grant. There's two types. The working capital is the one we see the most of. Some examples, if you grow your own cattle to slaughter those, anything you want to add value to. So you're growing a crop, say you're growing strawberries, you want to make those into strawberry jam and sell them at the local farmers market. That could be a project, eligible project. So it's a one-to-one match. So that means you either have, if you apply for $10,000, you have to come up with $10,000 match. That could be in the form of cash or eligible in-kind contributions. You can count your labor. You can count maybe rent on your farm building, anything like that. That could be counted as match, but it is one-to-one. So for every dollar the federal government puts in, you have to match that 50%. So you have to put another dollar in. The grant period, we're allowed 3 years under this program. Most of the ones we see are 12 to 24 months, but there is allowable up to 3 years to spend the money. And that's really depending on the project complexity. So again, this just rehashes that. I mentioned the feasibility studies, developing business plans for processing or marketing the proposed value-added product, the working capital grant, processing costs, marketing and advertising, some inventory. I mentioned you could buy some product as long as you're growing more than 50%. You can buy additional inventory from somebody else, and some salary expenses as well. So one that I'll mention on is really our flagship program, and it's for real small businesses and some integrated ag businesses, like processing facilities or something of that nature, a project of that nature. This one is only for 50,000 or less. So we have an eligibility map that you can go to see if you qualify. It's a loan guarantee program similar to Small Business Administration. It's for eligible small businesses across the nation. You work directly with a lender, and we guarantee up to 80% of that loan. So this is really similar to if any of you have dealt with the Farm Service Agency and their loan guarantee program. This one is very similar to that. But that's one that is eligible or that is available to small businesses in rural areas. All right. So ag producer, I do want to hit on that while we're here. And let me see, this is basically from our regulation. So the definition of ag producer for REAP, which is a little different. We can't, most of our programs, as I mentioned, we can't work in urban areas, but this is one we can. So 51% of your income must be derived from agriculture production. So, like I said, that's typically found on the Schedule F. Total ag, we would look at your tax returns to determine that. So basically, I say all that to say, if you're working in a secondary job and your ag production part of it is, the minority portion of your income, then we'd have to take a really close, in-depth look at your income to make sure that you qualified. I wouldn't want you to get way into the process and then not be eligible because you don't meet this definition. Our website, I'm pulling over. Our website is rd.usda.gov -Tennessee. So if anybody wants to write that down, that's where you go. You can get all the information you want on value-added producer grants or the REAP grant programs just by going to our website. And then lastly, our contact info for Tennessee State staff. I'm actually in I work this program out of West Tennessee. I'm actually born and raised in Tipton County, which is one county north of Shelby and Memphis. But I am the program to work virtually out of Nashville as the program director. Shelby County is covered by our Jackson area office, and Roe Hughes is the contact for business programs and is very knowledgeable. He's been a specialist for around 7 or 8 years now, and he's the contact for business programs.
Joel, can you hear me?
Sir? Yes, sir.
Could you put that information in the chat box, please?
Oh, yes, sir. I'll try to figure out how to do that, but I can. If not, I can share my PowerPoint with you by email, and if you have a list of attendees, maybe. If not, I can do that though, Albert. I'll get that done for you. So that concludes my presentation. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to take those now.
We're gonna hold the questions to the end. Dr. King has a question and answer session there. Dr. King.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Howard. And we're going to move on to our next resource presenter, Mr. Will Freeman. He's a business consultant with the Tennessee Department of Agriculture. Mr. Freeman, are you here?
Yes, sir. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I appreciate that and appreciate the opportunity to join in and speak to y'all. I'm going to try to share my screen here, see if I do that successfully without breaking anything, and then get going real quick. Are y'all able to see this PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, we'll give a brief update with the Tennessee Department of Ag, and I'll kind of run through it real quick. So definitely can answer some questions down the road and later on. So in the state of Tennessee, what we work with at the department is multiple things. We try to keep folks safe through regulatory requirements and food safety and that type of thing. We also work to keep our forest land safe and managed correctly. We provide landowner assistance, but really what I'm here to talk about and focusing on is our business development portion of this. So what opportunities and resources we provide to business owners and farmers and producers here in the state of Tennessee and how we can support them, even if it's just through hands-on assistance. So again, that's really the focus of what this division does. One of the pieces of this is even some livestock grading and market news. We've got some federal friends here talking, and we work with USDA on this to be able to showcase week by week some market prices. So every Monday morning, I'll go in and post on our Tennessee Department of Ag Facebook page what those prices are, and that's intended to help our producers, not even in the state, but in the region, to make their best decisions. Next, something that we've been working on is a farm and forest legacy program. So how can we support farm businesses and families so that they can successfully pass that farm down to the next generation? Of course, that involves a lot of things and a lot of moving pieces, including some of these bullet points you see in front of you here. But if you do have any interest as a business owner or as a farmer and producer in some of the legal aspects and just business success aspects and making sure that your next generation has the ability to keep the business going, feel free to reach out to us. We work closely with Extension Services here in Tennessee to provide resources for that. Finally, we really want to make sure we're supporting all different sizes and types of producers and farmers throughout the region and throughout the state, of course. But we do have a focus on some of the big businesses coming through that will provide more jobs and will provide opportunities for producers in our ag industry. And so that's a part of what we do as well here. But the more exciting things to talk about instead of those nitty-gritty programs is funding opportunities. And so the biggest one, and the one that we make sure that we want to showcase to folks throughout conversations like these, is our Tennessee Ag Enhancement Program. This TAEP program has been around for 15 years, and it is our best opportunity at supporting businesses that are producer focused and that include mostly just farmers. So that is to where every October 1st through 7th, farmers in Tennessee can apply to receive cost share assistance on equipment that would basically strengthen their operation. So that could include if you're a cattle producer and you need a cattle working chute, we can give you some cost share assistance on that. Let's say you're trying to sell the meat directly from the farm and you need some freezer space. We can work with you on that, even grain bins, that type of thing. So this is a broad program that offers a lot of opportunities, but of course, with something of this caliber, there's a lot of information available. So on our website, you can spend most of an afternoon seeing what items are eligible, what the best route to take would be. And of course, we're here to try to help you work through that and support you along the way. For folks who are so familiar with TAEP and utilize it, they've noticed some changes that happened this year. If you haven't utilized this program before, this isn't exactly relevant for you, but we do try to keep up to date year after year and making sure that that program stays impactful. And we're proud that every dollar that goes into it from Tennessee taxpayer dollars has a $6.09 economic impact. And we hope to continue going a higher direction with that. So if you're in this call, a Tennessee business, and you are involved in food and fiber production or manufacturing, you're just not exactly a traditional farm operation. We also have an ag enterprise fund. And so the best way to think of this is a lot of processing projects or any businesses that impact the ag industry or Tennessee communities that are also purchasing equipment upgrades or new equipment. So some examples of what this program would support, let's say a sawmill is buying some new equipment and some new saws. That's going to impact the community because they're bringing in more logs, more board feet to go through, and we would support that. A meat processing facility, some food manufacturers that are going to purchase from local producers on their inputs. Yes, sir.
Are you attempting to share your screen? The only thing that's up there is just Tennessee Department of Agriculture.
I apologize for that. Let me figure out how we're going to do this.
Also, Mr. Freeman, when you move
Yes,
around, if you're talking to Mike directly, you're fading in and out.
Perfect. Now, I apologize for that, everybody. Let's see if we can get this fixed up. and see if that has. How's that looking? Is that any better?
That's it.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, perfect. If y'all do have any trouble hearing me, or if the mic goes in and out, please feel free to flag me down. I appreciate y'all catching me on that. And so, but you know, the TAEP program on the producer focus side, that is one that I'd be happy to connect with you guys directly on and provide more assistance, because it is a big program with a lot of moving pieces. This Ag Enterprise Fund one is another one that has a lot of moving pieces as well. But just basically any type of manufacturing or processing business that's going to create jobs and impact a community because you need to source more local inputs, we may have an opportunity for you through this Ag Enterprise Fund. So on this one, there's a $17.55 impact and return on investment for it. And something else that we're proud of there, it's a strategic investment as well. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this next couple slides because I know that we've got plenty on the agenda here. But in 2020 through 2021, we did offer an opportunity for coronavirus relief. And we have our hopes up that we'll be able to do something like it similar in the next year here in 2022. This is the breakdown of what we were able to provide businesses here in Tennessee, whether they were building their business up to be able to handle another pandemic level situation in the future, or that business disruption on the right side was to reimburse folks for net income loss. And this is a breakdown of the types of businesses we were able to support. So I think this one may be the most relevant. If you see a business type listed here that is relevant for what you do, chances are good that either A, we have somebody on our staff that is directly connected to it and would love to make a connection to support you in any way that we can. B, we may have a funding opportunity for that if you have any expansions coming up. Or C, if we have another program using federal dollars like this one in the future, which our hopes are we might in 2022, chances are good that these same types of businesses would be applicable for that. So if you see a familiar business type on here that you're involved with, the last slide that I'll be showing here, if I actually know how to use a screen, will have my contact information, and I would love to connect with you. Last few things, and then I'll be done here. We have a Pick Tennessee Products program to help you market products here from Tennessee. So if you are a food manufacturer or create artisan products from the farm, you can be listed and folks can see information about you. We have somebody on staff that will directly assist agritourism locations, whether you're a pick your own pumpkin patch or you've got a corn maze. We have somebody that can help you a whole lot with hands-on assistance. If you want to make a step to sell directly from the farm to a consumer, we have somebody for that. The fella that at one point was going to be presenting today and probably would have had his presentation pulled up the whole time, so I hate that you missed him. His name is Mike, and he works with food and beverage manufacturers and is the most knowledgeable person I can imagine when it comes to the regulations involved with that and the marketing assistance. And here in recent years, we've even kind of branched a little bit more into this craft beer, spirit, and wine space, and would love to support folks there. Of course, I've mentioned meat projects and producers throughout the process, and we have somebody on staff for that. And forest products is important to us as well, with more than half the state covered by forest land and the impact that it has on our communities. Finally, if you have any type of business that is going to be available to open up into space with international marketing, that's a big step. It's a tough step. It's a daunting step, but we do have somebody that we can connect you with that will help you along the way and offer you processes and opportunities to assist. And here's an example of just why that matters to us at the Tennessee Department of Agriculture. It's just because of numbers like that. So that is it from me. And I flew through quite a few things, but biggest takeaways are we would love to connect with you. And I would love to introduce you to some of my team members. If you have businesses that fit on anything that you've seen throughout this presentation and this PowerPoint, and this contact information that you see in front of me would be some of the best ways to get in touch with me, and would be happy to help you any way that I can. Thank you all, and sorry again about the troubles that we had there.
Mr. Freeman, I would appreciate that. I have one quick question.
Yes, sir.
And trying to connect the two. with USDA Rural Development and, of course, the Tennessee Department of Agriculture. Have you worked with your added value to use in the state dollars to match the added value piece with rural development resources on that grant program?
That's a great point, and if Joel is still here, I'm confident that he can clear up any mess that I make with this. From our perspective at the state of Tennessee, if a business has support from USDA, like those programs that Joel was talking about, like the Value Added Producer Grant, they can also receive assistance from us if the business type and the project matches both, qualities, of course, and qualifications. We at the state level don't have any issue with somebody paying for the other 50% of a cost share from USDA dollars. Now, the federal side may be different, and Joel, if you're still here, I can let you speak to that. But for our perspective at the state level, we just want to make sure that you're not double dipping a single purchase. And so if you have a $100,000 project and you want us to reimburse you for a little $10,000 building, we just want to make sure that you're not also getting reimbursed $10,000 from the feds, because at that point it becomes an issue. So that's a long answer to saying from the state perspective, you can have two forms of assistance for one project, but I wouldn't want to speak to it on the USDA side.
No, I was based on USDA's presentation. There's a cost share, on there. I think what was the 25% or 50% cost share on their side. And of course, when you look at the total project cost, so say the total project cost is $100,000 or $200,000, and if they can do up to 50%, that's federal. Of course, you can't do federal with federal, but you can do state and federal as far as match and participation is concerned. So I was just curious as to if you all had possibly done any of those types of initiatives of that nature together, and where it was beneficial to local organizations such as Tilth, and they work with a network of other producers dealing with the added value aspect of market distribution. But we can follow up on that. One thing I like us to do, hopefully Tilth will be in agreement with the follow-up. I like to come back with the group as a whole, have a follow-up conversation about what we see as possibly a potential type of initiative where we can do some, show some joint participation on the part of the resource agencies that's here, based on what the needs are of the local organization there. And rural development, they can participate in urban areas. I think that's a major plus, and particularly if we can get this the partnership, and that's one of the things with the Office of Partnership and Public Engagement, out of Washington, that works directly back with the Secretary's office, and that's what they encourage. Is the partnership and public engagement. And this is the case. You definitely deal with public engagement on the part of Tilth, the local organization, and of course the public aspect of it, and the partnership between both the private sector, state, and then the federal level. I think gives a lot of diversity to what the potential that may exist with this type of initiative, and based on what I heard Tilth talk about in the opening, and what they're doing right now on the added value side, market distribution, local food supply, seems to fit with those two programs. So again, thank you very much. We're going to move on now. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Miller. Are there any other questions from the audience?
Yes, Doug. We have a question from Mr. Freeman. You can speak right here.
Do I have the question?
Yeah. Okay, use that one. Yeah. Yes, we have a question.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Represent the state and a lot of wonderful programs, but I want to report that it hadn't been trickling down to us farmers over here. It seemed like you almost got to have a PhD to get through them applications. And so I would like to know, I heard you say that you got somebody for this and somebody for that. We happy to hear that good information, and you would like to know when can they come, because we need to see them right away. And you understand the seriousness of this food situation and the food shortage, especially affecting us here in the food desert. We need some help from the state of Tennessee. Please send us some help. You said you got somebody to come down here and see us and get us in these applications and make these links for us. I just want y'all to come on down there, come out of those offices and see how serious this situation down there, because we got to feed the people. It's up to us. We the growers. Now, people with the state of Tennessee and they make these hard applications, and before we find out about it, it's over with. And this happens year after year after year, and you get money from the federal government. We just don't understand. Please come down here and help us out. Send somebody down here to talk to us. Okay? We got to feed the people. We growers. We don't know all the stuff about the computers and everything, but we good growers and we can feed our people. We had to call the Arkansas Land and Development Corporation to come in and look at this situation in the state of Tennessee. Help us out. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Yes, sir. No, yes, sir. Absolutely. And I do appreciate that and hear you on that. And if one opportunity would be helpful on this, what I'm hearing is that, of course, us being not nearby and communicating in a way that's not personable, definitely do hear that and understand that. Another being the challenging application process, a lack of communication. I hear you on that as well. But what it sounds like from my experience here on these programs that might be a best fit for you is if we had two folks that came between the time that these applications that would be relevant are open and then the times that we're actually accepting them, so that we could sit down in person and discuss what's a fit, get a game plan together, get some opportunities together to understand what it is that we're looking for from the state side that would fit what you're looking for from a producer side. And since that happens every single year, the first week of October for this specific program that it sounds like would be a best fit for what you guys are doing, it sounds like scheduling an opportunity in mid-September to late September when the applications are produced and distributed, but still would be able to be accepted, and we'd have another little bit of wiggle room to go through, complete the game plan, the business plan, and this application would be valuable. Additionally, we do have urban producer focuses going on right now that's a little bit higher than me, and it's kind of coming from our commissioner. And so maybe we have somebody that's specifically familiar with the TAEP program for this application for grant assistance, as well as somebody who has some more information on what opportunities may be available at that time, since there are none now, for urban agriculture. And so if it works for you guys, I can work with some of the industry partners here and anybody else that y'all suggest to go ahead and get that scheduled now for that mid to late September timeline. Come to a location that would be convenient, get us out of Nashville a little bit, and then see if that could be of assistance if you all think that that's a good opportunity.
I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you for a great presentation. If you could please share that presentation with Albert.
I think it's in the chat box.
I'm here with you, Albert. I'm not in the chat box. And so I don't know if you were on very early on, Will, but my name is Mia Madison. I'm the executive director here at Memphis Tilth. And you will probably be receiving communication from our offices about how we dig in together to provide that equity to farmers in our area. So since we work with farmers in this area and we have cohort-based learning that will begin in January, we've already reached out to the Tennessee Department of Agriculture about how we can get some of this information shared down to our urban farmers and some of our rural farmers that we're working with. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to say, hi, I'm Mia. I'm the person that's probably in the Memphis area to coordinate the work together with our farmers. Chief is absolutely right. And it's the equity that we require here on the ground in community that allows us to scale up with our farmers so that they can receive so that they can understand how to apply to those programs and what that funding looks like back here on the ground. So I'd like to thank you again. I'm introducing myself to you again. I'm Mia Madison. I'm the executive director here at Memphis Tilth. You'll probably get a communication from Corey Walker, who's going to reach out to you probably specifically about this to schedule that meeting coming up, but also how we engage to ramp up to that time so that we're making application with all of the things that we need in order to make our best application, and then some of the other programs that we've heard here today. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. And I'll share this PowerPoint presentation now and definitely stay in touch to work with you guys. I think that's a great game plan to plan that together earlier on, and that way we'll all be prepared for that early October timeline. I appreciate y'all.
Ms. Miller, are you there?
I am. Yes, sir.
Okay, we're going to turn it over to Ms. Miller at this point. She's going to take work session 2 and 3.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to move right along. We know that it's 4:20. So we're into workshop 2. We want to thank everybody that presented in workshop 1. There was some good information that was presented. Also, I want to just let everyone know, if you don't know, that the contact information for Mr. Howard and Mr. Hughes is in the chat box. Okay, so our first presenter, well, for workshop 2, the name of it is Farm Financing, Micro-Urban Farming, Local Food Supply, and Opportunities for Beginning Farmers. So our first presenter would be Ms. Latanya Channel, and I hope I'm not butchering your name. She's the District Manager of Small Business Administration. Ms. Latanya, are you on? Is anybody else on for small business?
I don't believe they have anyone on, Ms. Miller.
Okay.
You can go to the next person.
Okay. So since we don't have anybody for the Small Business Administration, we'll move right along to Mr. Pete Nelson, who is the President and Executive Director of Ag Launch. Mr. Nelson, are you on with us today?
You're gonna have to give me a moment. Without our SBA colleagues, I think I should probably talk about a few of the SBA programs first before some of my thoughts. So just give me a moment here. Good to see everybody. Oh, great. Good to see everybody. Just give me just a moment. Here, actually, I'll tell you what, the easiest part to do with SBA, which we're in close contact with, is next Wednesday, December 8th at 8:30 a.m. We'll make sure you have a link. We'll have a full SBA proposal. So instead of me trying to pretend I can go through that, I just saw it yesterday, but it goes through step by step all the programs. And there's actually an astounding amount of things that SBA does for farmers that, even though I'm an SBA contractor, I was not even fully aware of. So that might be the easiest thing to do, Mr. Alvarez, do it that way, because I wanted you to hear that. So good to see everybody. My name is Pete Nelson. I started farming a small farm in Shelby County in 1995. And I've spent my career trying to figure out how do we think about this region that we're in and the history of our region, and how do we think about moving off of commodities and making it easier for people like us that are in this room to be able to grow and work with other things that aren't going on a barge and being shipped out, but things that might bring healthy food and opportunity, jobs, and other things to our community. So what I'm not going to be able to do, and I hope it's okay, Albert, is give you a lot of details on programs. We will have this program that we mentioned, we'll send that out. We also are collaborators directly with Mia and the Tilth and are providing technical assistance to farmers here through that. So together, collectively, we'll be able to answer this question. But what I'm going to do is try to give you a little bit of, based on our conversation, a landscape of kind of the things that are going on that affect us. We know a lot already about whether we have received them or not, the federal funding and all this sort of changes with COVID and supply chain. But I just want to give you all, and the folks that are online, just a couple thoughts about some of the things that are happening here. One of those is, has anybody heard of the Next California Initiative? Anybody heard of that? We talked about it briefly on the phone. So this affects us because it's the first time, at least in my career, that a major international nonprofit looked at our region and got on board talking about the same stuff that many of us have been talking about since we were kids. Nutrient-rich crops, alternative crops, how do we create an environment? As you all know, this is a strong word, but I say we're held hostage here by the barge, by the commodities, by the way we've always done it, which makes it harder for all of us. So this particular initiative that we've just are participants in is the World Wildlife Fund. So they operate in 108 countries. And when I first started thinking World Wildlife Fund, what does that have to do with us here learning how to farm and growing farms? But what their interest is environmental sustainability. So what they've recognized is places that grow a lot of vegetables, California and others, don't have the water. They're not in a good location near the markets. And so they put some visibility on the things, Chief and others, that we've been talking about in a way that we just have not had before. So I would encourage you to look at the report. I'll send you all some follow-up. But what they did was basically say, we should be doing the things, and all of us can nod, that we've been talking about. We should be growing all kinds of crops. We should keep it in our neighborhoods and communities and process locally, not export everything out. And we should build a more robust food system. So that's the good part. The negative part, like everything else, is now that there's visibility, you all know what happens. Money people, folks that have other interests, all want to like come in. So I'm saying both as an encouragement that the time is now for the kind of things we all talk about. You can see it with what consumers buy. You can see it with the interest on many, many different fronts. But how do we take advantage of participating? The second thing is us to think about as a group regionalism. We've been so much, we're in Memphis. Our brothers and sisters are coming over from Arkansas to work with us here, but we have to think about this in a regional perspective. And I want to compliment TDA and USDA and others who have really helped think that way. I don't know if you heard earlier in the presentations, I think it was Will, with TDA said, they're putting market information out on Mondays to help us get visibility on the markets and what should we be able to sell for and all that. But he said, we're doing that for the region's farmers, not just Tennessee farmers. So the second kind of big point I wanted to make is just us think about that and just really be thoughtful about how we think about regions. And so one specific piece of information that I wanted to share. Am I doing anything wrong?
No, just take a picture.
Yeah, I'm having trouble even standing still. I don't like standing still. I don't like sitting in meetings all day. So I'm like trying to stay focused on this microphone. But one thing that I wanted to bring up was that there's a new initiative that's a tri-state charter. Has anybody heard of that? It's going to be, they have these in other areas. There's one in St. Louis between the Illinois side of the river and the Missouri side of the river to make sure everybody are not competing over how do we attract new types of opportunities. So there's now a tri-state charter in place. It's in the final drafts that includes Arkansas counties, Mississippi counties, and Shelby and Tipton County and Fayette County on this side of the river. And the idea of that, you can imagine, these are the big, Chamber of Commerce kind of people. They want to get a big factory in here, but what's unique, they've actually had me talk, they're really interested in the local food system and how do we think about, again, we're putting everything on a barge and shipping it out. Then we're bringing all these ingredients to make food products here that aren't even the healthy food products that we want to be making and can do. So they've really been oriented around that and now have a vehicle that instead of competing for opportunities, potentially we can think about the regional stuff that we're talking about. So I hope this is all interesting to you all. This is not getting your near-term issues solved, but giving you some perspective. The next one I wanted to mention, this is why we run around with SBA, is there's now funding coming in from the outside that's not traditional ag funding because we've managed to, and many of us have been doing this for a long time. You go back to George Washington Carver and the transition of how do we grow things and use them and have crop diversity. Many of us have been like thinking and talking about this for a long time, but groups outside of ag are recognizing the economic development potential, innovation. So the second thing around regional is that we are designated now as a regional innovation hub or cluster that includes the Arkansas Delta, the Mississippi Delta, West Tennessee, with SBA and other groups that traditionally have funded small business, but maybe haven't played as much in ag. And what's astounding about that is that normally when you get those, it's an urban thing. Well, this is about the network of farmers like you're sitting in this room, working and developing new ideas and working together. So there's just, I guess I want to say, there's some momentum like everything else. If we don't stay on top of it and drive it to what we want to do, it'll get away from us. But there's a lot of movement and resources coming to this idea of a localized food system, more crop diversity. Got two more quickly for you. Does anybody know what blockchain is? And I'm like, I'm not a nerd. It's weird now. All these people, we had this whole discussion earlier. All these people think I'm like a total tech nerd person now and not a farmer. And I've had to kind of like learn this stuff. Anybody even heard of it? Blockchain or distributed ledger? Okay. What you're gonna get is the non-nerd, super like fast, the way that I think about it, way of thinking. So what it is, everybody's heard of the cloud and all that, right? So right now, if we have a transaction and it's digital, if it's anything that's not just me handing you a check, there's still a middleman. So I've spent my whole career trying to get around. I don't know who's on this call, so hopefully they're not going to be frustrated with me, but I've spent my whole career trying to get around middlemen. I don't like Cargill and ADM in the middle of what we're doing. It's not good for y'all, not good for any of us that are trying to farm. And so what happens is that right now you still have a big central place, even if it's digital, where our information, how we interact. So you still have a middleman. So even if you're using more modern technology to move things around, you still have a middleman. So this way out there concept, blockchain, distributed ledger, what it is using little pieces of math and a bunch of separate individuals' computers, and they essentially divide up pieces of information. And again, this is not the science version. This is a simple way to think about it. So you got a little bit on yours, she's got a little bit on yours, you got a little bit on your computer, and you've got a math code that unlocks it. What that means is we can do a transaction without anybody, whether it's an IBM or a Microsoft, sitting in the middle of the transaction. One. What that also then means is we're not paying a margin to somebody to be in the middle of the transaction. And three, which is the most important, we can start going in the direction that actually works in the favor of the people in this room, which is how do we get paid for delivering nutrition or quality or vegetables that actually look good like they did when we were kids? How do we price it that way? And we spend a lot of time in the local food business trying to, how do we get into the Krogers or how do we scale? How do we get, and that kind of is a little race to the bottom because we're trying to compete with commodities. These sort of new technologies may give us an opportunity, if we do it right, for people of color to own part of it, which would be a novel and different change, and to start figuring out ways to get value for the real value we're bringing, how it was grown, who was part of that process, and again, nutrition. So that was the next one. We're working on some projects actually with the Tilth and others to try to figure out some of that. And I know we're gonna do questions. That might be the end of my comments. I feel a little bit inadequate to help you now and kind of go, here's the long-term thing. But what my job is to try to find resources, money, business models to connect us again to these opportunities. And I can't tell you, old friends, it's nice to see everybody and be in y'all's house here. And it's new friends, really nice to get to know you all and the group at Ag Launch. We're here, our office is about a mile from here, but we're here to serve. We're here to help farmers. That's our whole goal, to take advantage of opportunities for the future. So thanks again for having me. I appreciate it.
Could you do the mic where everybody can hear it? You come up to the mic.
Do you want me to move?
Yeah, well, you can stay there. Just need them to come up to the mic.
Do we have questions?
Yeah, we have a question.
Okay.
Put you in front of the camera here, sir.
My question, I remember Ms. Trice, I do local farming here. About 15 years ago, we started hearing the term, and you mentioned it earlier, that Memphis would become the new California. And in an effort to do that, we started back several years ago, in 2008, with a retreat, bringing people in from California to look at how we would be able to interact with vegetables from California, what we could do here. And as the forest fires that's precipitated out there, it's becoming more and more. About 10 years ago, I started investing into the farmers market in California, in Oakland, precisely, and looking at trying to get that farmers market going to understand what that vegetable. Can you explain a little bit more what that process is?
I can, but what I'll say with all humbleness, sir, what you all were doing then, and sometimes is exactly what we want to be doing. I think developing the relationships. Let me tell you first what I don't like about California, and two things I don't like calling things next California. One is I don't want to give anybody else's brand and give it any kind of credit other than our brand, one. But two is with all, again, I don't remember who's on this, so I always say controversial stuff. The way that those couple of companies, Bristol, Taylor Farms, right? But is it good? Gotcha. Perfect. Yeah. So that's
beginning to do what we're doing here to address food.
good. Great. Okay, that's a great clarification. So I will start by going. The way that they do business there as the agribusiness is not something we want to bring here, and that is a concern to me. So what specifically we're doing, we actually are working in Oregon, in the Willamette Valley, and a little bit in California, and it is looking at what crops could we grow here that are grown there? What are the business models? How do we learn together? How do we accept, hey, we don't even have to be the first producer, we can be the second one. And so what I'll say is, I don't have a great answer for you. That's one reason I'm here, is to learn. And so I want to hear more about what connections, and that's a great part of this work. But the opportunity, and we think a lot about this, is finding other like-minded people like you all are clearly doing in other places and sharing across regions. And I'll give you an example that doesn't quite get there, but up in the Willamette Valley in Oregon, because of their land laws, because of Wendell Berry, who helped also start the Tilth, went out there in the 70s and said, you guys need to watch out. Y'all are going to turn into the Midwest, and you're going to have all these big corporate agribusiness here. And they said, no, we're going to figure out a way not to do that. So those 3 counties grow 170 crops. All the grass seed, for example, we have in any big box store, because they understand their microclimate, they understand what their capabilities and limitations are, but they're controlling their own destiny, which I know you're going to nod, and others that care about that. And so I don't have any answers. What I have is I stand in service to you guys that are working.
But I do think that you need to get a system, and I think the Wedge in Minnesota has been successful in keeping out the big box stores, Walmart in particular. They've been very successful in looking at how you can benefit small growers. So to me, that's a model. Going to look at that.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot, and I've been a student of agriculture my whole life, and it's every time. Yeah, and here's another reason. So this is good learning. I think what I will leave without answering your question, is to go, we need to tell the truth about what our circumstance is. Our circumstance is, and if you did any Chamber of Commerce, anybody else did a plan on ag and food, you know what would be on the cover, the bridge and the barge. That doesn't work for us. What works for us is finding markets, creating them, and keeping it local, and doing that humbly, and hopefully a little bit more sophisticated way, of which people of color and others that have been excluded own part of that. So, and if we could get there, it'd be amazing, but I'm not carrying anything but a humbleness of like heavy lift. But first, we just have to say it. Let's just have a realistic view of our landscape. And I think you all know it's about $584 across the 13 million acres average per acre value at the farm gate. And anything we can do to stop that hemorrhaging and add value and bring more, we need to try to do. So thanks again, and great. I want to hang out with you just like I want to hang out with all the rest of you guys here. So this is good. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Ms. Miller, are you back there?
I am. Okay, so we're gonna move right along, and we thank Mr. Nelson for his presentation. Is there any more questions? Okay, if not, then we're gonna move on to workshop 3. This workshop will address the air property challenges and opportunities for drone technology in farming and ranching. Our presenter for this workshop would be our very own President and CEO of Arkansas Land and Community Development, Dr. Calvin King, which he'll be discussing the drones and air property. Dr. King, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Ms. Fuller. I want to, if you would allow me, I want to go some back into work session 2 as well, because that was part of that work session we talked about ag financing and farm financing. And I know we didn't have a representative from Farm Service Agency, but as we move forward, and of course, we're hopefully expanding the partnership base and the networking base back with Tilth and the urban agricultural aspect of it. FSA does provide financing for urban farming operations, what we call micro-urban farming operations. They have a micro-loan program that's up to $50,000 for operating expenses. And of course, up to $50,000 that can be acquired as a direct loan as far as capital investment itself is concerned. Now, I won't go into any details about that, but we do provide technical assistance in working with individuals, partnering with organizations in developing those farm business plans. So those who are interested in becoming beginning urban micro farmers, those who may already be beginning urban micro farmers and looking at expanding their farming operations, I would definitely encourage you to follow up with us on that. We can do most of the work electronically. Mr. Tucker, who's our technical person, who's there with you all today, is our farm advisor and works with me in that particular arena. The other aspect of that, and I won't go back to deal with everything on the conservation side, but farm number. FSA, NRCS mentioned that FSA provides all those support services. You must have a farm number in order to qualify for the other services as a micro-urban farmer, including NRCS program services as well. But Farm Service Agency provides the services in assigning farm numbers. Specific requirements information you have to have: proof of ownership of the land is one, the proof of ownership of the property, and the description of the particular property that you will be dealing with to get that farm number. So I encourage you, if you don't have that, have the interest in expanding, and you're looking at some particular properties that may exist in the urban areas, make sure that you have the farm number for that property and apply for the program services on the NRCS conservation program side. The other area I'm going to give a quick reference to as well. We talked about the direct marketing as a part of that, and I know we covered that from the presentation. Mr. Freeman did, but ag marketing services is really the premier component within USDA and provide a great deal of resources for dealing with the marketing initiative, as well as financing and supporting, providing dollars to support the expansion and the creation of farmer market outlets, direct-to-consumer marketing type of initiatives. And again, won't go into all the details on that, but I'm hopeful we can have a follow-up meeting. And this not Mr. Howard, but Mr. Freeman and Mr. Walker from NRC have a follow-up meeting to this, along with Tilth, to have some further discussions in those areas. Drones in agriculture practices. Arkansas Land and Farm Corporation. I'm hopeful that our next presentation that Mike can have a presentation he can download and show how we use drones here on our site. And again, with this site, you may not consider it being a small farming operation, but it is. It's only a little less than 300 acres. but we use drones as part of a livestock demonstration operation. And we're now embarking upon, or we're implementing drones in use in dealing with vegetable crop production as well. And basically what this demonstration is about using drones to identify the actual location where you may have a concentrated location of certain insects, and you're going to be dealing with a pesticide application in order to manage, the insect invasions you may be having on your farm. And of course, in certain cases, and not necessarily the use of what one would call a traditional type of chemical practice that one would use in producing vegetables, because there are a lot of pesticides that can be used that allow you to maintain an organic certification, and different companies have those type of pesticides. I don't want to say chemicals, but pesticide products that can be used or applied. But the use of the drone itself is to minimize how to reduce the level of the volume or amount of pesticide that would be used in producing a particular crop. Reducing that, and by reducing the actual volume of pesticide used, of course, that has a direct effect upon what they call smart agricultural practices now, because a lot of the conservation practices, and that being one of them, in dealing with pest management, best practices, and dealing with pesticides, the same thing with herbicides, but the best practices approach, this has been linked more down back to the issue around environmental issues and clean air. So a lot of practices now that are being employed by producers are linked to conservation. They're also linked back to the environment itself. So, and there are other areas where one should be concerned about all those practices apply, because they are being linked more now to the amount of level of conservation payments that would be provided to farmers or producers who employ those practices. Again, the drones are growing in that area as you apply the technology for the monitoring the field. You can scout fields with drones as well. So that's one of the areas we're working in now. We're going to be exploring it as we tend to move forward. Now, one thing that's actually good about that, and we've been having some other conversations, some of the technicians I'm working with now, when you're working with an organization such as Tilth that is more urban-based, and an organization like Arkansas Land and Community Development Corporation and a farm network, individuals or organizations that are more urban-based and working with urban farmers, and then going to work with the micro farm or small-scale farming operations out in the rural areas. And if they want to see, basically, before we make any commitment to work with your farming operation or to make purchases from your farming operation to put into our food supply chain, we need to have some sense of what your farming operation looks like and what the makeup of your crops are going to be like during the production process once it reaches a certain level. Well, you can use drones for that too. And the exciting thing about it, you can use drones to go scout the field, get the necessary pictures, and then download those pictures directly back to your partnering groups or organizations, say in the Memphis network, identifying both the producers, crops they'll be producing, and then where those crops are and the quality of those crops and what they're looking like at a certain level. So we're excited about the use of drones, how they're used from one level in dealing with both the pesticide management, both in using the drone for scouting purposes, and as I think it was Mr. Freeman that gave mention, if we have this network of the organizations and you have one organization that's in this box over here that can provide a certain level of information as relates to dealing with a product itself, and I'm talking about the crops themselves, and another organization that may be in another corner, another category. I'm only trying to draw some example of that and say that is Tilth, then where there's a point of connecting the dots with the producers to a more urban volume level of market distribution and having the information that can be accessible from a technology perspective is really where we are right now. And we're going to move this forward. We can work with our farmers in the same way. So if there are 5 farmers that is selected, and so they really want to work with these 5 farmers, but we want to monitor these farmers on an ongoing basis. Well, you know, you don't want people having to come all the way out of Memphis, over to eastern Arkansas, 2 or 3 times, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, where it is, versus where you have a group of organizations locally within the area that can fly the drones to get the information on the farms and then download that information back to the market distribution operation and know that, yes, we will have these crops ready within this, they will be ready based on the status of whether it was down within the next week or next 2 weeks for market delivery into our market outlets. So again, and I'm going to move on forward. That's on the drone side. For air property, and I've been in the meeting most of the day dealing with air property with the Home Loan Bank. And air property is a big issue, particularly in the communities of color and what we say the underserved, a lot of underserved communities, both in the rural as well as in the urban areas. Now, the challenge of air property in dealing with agriculture, be it urban areas, you're working with the urban communities, the rural communities. The challenge of it is that if you have urban farming opportunities, and say there are 3 or 4 lots of areas in the urban area that you can establish as an urban farm, in order for you to do that, if there's an air property situation, it can sometimes be a barrier because you have to show not just a description of the property, but that you have the control of that property before you can get a farm number from FSA. The other challenge behind that is that in some cases, if there is a small section of land or farm on the outside of town, maybe 5 acres or so or less or within a certain area, and you have a farm number, but it is air property, and you want to make certain improvements on that land in use of USDA NRCS programs, such as irrigation wells, putting a hoop house on as another added value to the land itself, and increasing the overall capacity of that farming operation for extended growth season, as well as risk management practices by having access to irrigation for the farming operation, and a lot of other practices that you would want to, that would be beneficial for you to employ on a micro-urban farm. In Arkansas, recently they Natural Resource Conservation Services and Tennessee may have done the same. For the first time, now Arkansas has, the state technical committee has established a sub-urban farm technical committee. Now, the urban farm technical committee will be looking at a number of things from a policy perspective, and I plan to be on that committee as well. But that particular committee will be dealing with policy, and one of the areas of policy that we had discussion on in our last meeting is that it's changing the payment scale for urban farms. In other words, you don't pay urban farmers on the basis of acres like you do a regular farm or a small farm, because it's considerably higher. I mean, you're talking about $206,000 type of contract for a particular farm with certain practices being employed. It may be cover crops, it may be crop rotation, it may be mulching, it may be certain types of micro irrigation practices that's employed as well. But if you're paying them the same in comparison to what you do on your regular type of farming operation, then that in itself is you can't compare. You can't compare apples and oranges, traditional crop recipe, urban farm, the farm and film. So I'm hopeful in Arkansas, and that this will also, as Mr. Freeman gave reference to again from a regional perspective, I am hopeful that this discussion will also take place with Mississippi and Tennessee in looking at the urban agriculture aspect of it, particularly on the micro urban farm and potential growth and continued growth of micro urban farm and the local food supply capacity. So that's pretty much my presentation I have both on the air property, what the barriers are, and of course the technology and use of drones, both in pesticide management as well as for monitoring and providing networking information on farming operations back into the market distribution network. And that's where we are now. And I hope we'll have an opportunity to actually do some of this coming up season. And it will depend upon Ms. Madison. I'd like to have some further conversation with you about that as we identify some of these producers and we can do some tests on it, even as we're going through we have some winter crops in now, even as we're going through the season now to see how this works in both technology, communication, back into market opportunity network. Again, that's all I have. If you have any questions, let me know.
Yes, does anyone in the audience, if you have a question, we need you to come up to the mic to where the individuals online can hear you. See?
Well, people, if there are no questions, do you have a question?
I want to thank Mrs. Tilth for having this wonderful program here today. And I want to give out a shout out to Mr. Fred Walker. He's a great guy, a great conservationist. He takes care of his people. I testify to that, but I just want the different organizations that are part of this wonderful class here today to think about sticking together, work together, help us. We here to grow us on a lower level. We dependent on you all to make the connection with the federal government, the state government, the county government, city government, all of it, and let us grow the food, feed the people. And we need each other. Come out of these offices. It's a lot of hard work. It's not that many farmers to target. Of course, we want 500 in the network. We're building a food network all over the Southeast. And we want you all to be looking forward to, after this is over with, this week, get together, talk among yourselves, get back with us, call us back to the table again, so we can be ready to plant in the spring. That's all I want to say.
Thank you so much. Corey, you got a question? Come on up. This is Corey Walker, Operations Manager here at Tilth.
Just wanted to piggyback on what she said. I know, I'm sorry, she's gonna have to learn camera. That's funny. Hi, I'm Corey Walker. If we haven't met yet, I'm an operations manager new to Memphis. Tilth was very, very inspired by what's going on, the conversations that we're having today. I just wanted to let you guys know, if you haven't been informed already, we do have a farmers needs assessment out. This survey we've been collecting since July, is trying to better understand the needs of you guys, farmers, and your individual challenges. We understand some of the larger challenges that farmers face, but we want to hear from you individually. And that survey, we have a link to that on our website, but we also have QR code cards here today that you can take with you. And we definitely want to hear from you, because we are building future programming based on your responses and what you need. So please, please Now, if you don't have time for the farmer's needs assessment, I understand you guys are busy, but please try to fill it out. If not, email me, talk to me. I go by Mia. I'm basically Mia's right-hand person. She's like, she introduces me as herself. So if you can't get a hold of Mia, please talk to me because we want to hear from you. We're really, really excited about our Ag Academy 2.0 and being able to work with farmers to scale up to these markets and having these conversations and partnerships. And I just can't thank you guys enough for coming today. Thank you guys for hosting this event.
What is QRC code?
A QR code is a scan code that you can use to scan the camera, and then it links you directly to the survey. So it's just a quick, fast way to get to the survey, which I have those cards up front for you guys. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Corey. With that being said, if there are no more questions, I'd like to just thank everyone for coming out. Dr. King, we're about to shut it off. It's 5 o'clock. Again, thanks everyone. Do you have anything else, Doc?
No, I'm out. Again, I appreciate Tilth, and we'll be looking forward to following back up with you to have some further discussions regarding this marketing network distribution, and hopefully to put together some of our farmers around the table, and we can talk, from where you are and then where we are here, and try to get something together for the season coming up. So I'm looking forward to working with you, the partnership.
All righty. Again, thanks everyone for coming. This concludes our meeting.